The stars above the Zelfar Empire glimmered coldly, distant and indifferent, but on the fortress world of Kael'thar, their light barely touched the towering spires of metal and glass. The Warlord citadel rose like a jagged crown, black against the pale blue sky, and within its walls life was measured in strength, obedience, and fear. Every alien in the court knew the law. Kael'thar was supreme, and weakness could not exist under his gaze. Yet in this empire of absolute power, there was a single shadow that even the Warlord could not hide. His daughter, Liara. She moved slowly, her leg twisted from birth, a constant reminder of vulnerability in a world that celebrated strength above all else. Courtiers whispered behind the tall doors of the palace, calling her fragile and unfit, a disgrace to the Warlord's line. Some had suggested she be hidden away, perhaps even removed from public life entirely. But Kael'thar, the unyielding Warlord, had a different plan. In the human quarter of the fortress, the slaves were gathered for the day's ritual. Men and women captured during raids across the border planets worked the halls, cleaned the massive chambers, and trained in the arena. Among them was Thane, a human whose size and presence made even seasoned Zelfar warriors take notice. His shoulders were broad, his muscles corded and tense from years of war and survival, yet there was something sharper in his eyes, an intelligence, calm and calculating, that unsettled those around him. While other humans feared the alien's power, Thane studied it. While others trembled before Kael'thar's wrath, Thane calculated the odds, and always found a way to survive. The court was alive with anticipation the morning Kael'thar's voice rang through the halls. "All beings of this court," he said, his multifaceted eyes sweeping over the gathered nobles and slaves, "hear my decree. My daughter Liara will be given to one among you, not to a noble of your kind, not to one of my warriors, but to the strongest human slave." A murmur ran through the crowd. The nobles froze, shocked. How could the Warlord give his child to a human? They were considered weak, expendable, their lives worth nothing in comparison to the alien bloodline. Even the slaves exchanged glances, some trembling, some wide-eyed with disbelief. Bane's jaw tightened, but his expression remained calm. Kael'thar continued, "You will compete in the arena. The strongest will not only survive, but will earn the honor of protecting my daughter. Let none think of this as mercy. Strength will be tested. Courage will be tested. Humanity will be tested." The slaves were herded into the preparation chambers. The air was heavy with tension. Many had never survived a trial, much less one designed to challenge every limit. Thane's hands brushed the hilt of his blade, a simple human weapon, but one he knew better than any alien combatant would. He did not speak. Words were useless. Preparation was everything. Liara watched from a balcony above, wrapped in layers of silken fabric. Her leg ached with each step, but she refused to show weakness. She had been told her life would be spared, that she would be safe, but the idea of being treated as a prize unsettled her. The humans below were soldiers, yes, but they were unpredictable. She did not know if any could be trusted, and yet her gaze found Thane. He did not look up at her, but there was a stillness in him, a quiet strength that seemed to radiate even without acknowledgement. The arena was unlike anything a human could have imagined. It sprawled over kilometers, a labyrinth of jagged rock formations, deep pits and corridors filled with lethal traps. Alien beasts, bred for hunting and killing, lurked in hidden corners, waiting for the unwary. Every path was a test, every turn a threat. Only those who could think and fight in perfect harmony would survive. Thane stepped onto the arena floor, feeling the rough stone beneath his feet. The crowd's roar faded into the background, replaced by the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. He scanned the perimeter, noting the traps, the creatures, the patterns of movement in the alien combatants. Every detail mattered. Every error would cost him his life. The first wave was immediate. Creatures with scales harder than steel and claws sharper than blades lunged from the shadows. Many slaves were torn apart within seconds. Thane moved with precision, sidestepping, dodging, and using the environment to his advantage. He shoved one creature into a pit and vaulted over another, his instincts honed by years of battle. When he fought, it was not brute force alone. He anticipated movements, understood the patterns, and used his enemy's strength against them. The alien competitors were skilled, but they underestimated the human. They attacked with arrogance, relying on raw power alone, and Thane exploited every flaw. One by one, they fell, either outmaneuvered or driven into traps. Blood stained the arena floor, and the crowd gasped at the spectacle. But a human, they whispered, standing where none thought possible. Liara watched, her pulse quickening. She had expected fear, cowardice, desperation, but this human moved with calm certainty. His strength was evident, yes, but it was his mind that impressed her most. He was not merely surviving, he was mastering the arena. Hours passed, though in the arena it felt like days. Thane faced more challenges, each deadlier than the last. Pitfalls, swinging blades, and alien predators that could tear a creature in half challenged every skill he had, and yet he adapted, learning the rhythm of the traps, the weaknesses of the beasts, and even the tendencies of his alien opponents. No one expected a human to endure such trials, let alone overcome them. Finally, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the arena in long shadows, Thane stood alone. Bloodied, bruised, and exhausted, he had survived where countless others had fallen. His chest rose and fell in measured breaths, and for the first time, he allowed himself a flicker of satisfaction. He had not won by chance. He had earned this. Kael'thar's gaze fell upon him, unreadable as ever. The Warlord stepped forward, his towering frame casting a shadow across the arena floor. "You have survived," he said, voice deep and resonant. "And yet survival alone is not enough. You must protect her, gain her trust, and prove that humanity is more than the galaxy believes." Liara descended to the arena floor, her steps careful but deliberate. She studied the human who had conquered the impossible, her eyes narrowing as she measured him. Thane did not kneel, he did not bow. He simply acknowledged her presence, his posture firm but non-threatening. For a moment, the crowd fell silent. Here was a human, the so-called inferior species, standing not as a slave, but as a victor. And here was the Warlord's daughter, moving with tentative curiosity rather than fear. "Do not think this a gift," Kael'thar said, turning his gaze toward his daughter. "He is strong. He is human. He is not yours to command. Trust must be earned. Strength must be respected. Let none forget this lesson in this court or beyond." Liara's eyes met Thane's, and though she said nothing, a subtle understanding passed between them. Strength alone had brought him this far, but respect, wisdom, and courage would determine the path ahead. The crowd erupted in noise once more, but the moment between the human and the alien girl remained. A quiet spark of something new, something that the galaxy had never seen before. Even in a world ruled by fear and power, there were hints of change, and the first chapter of an unexpected story had begun. The arena was quiet now, but the silence was heavy, as if the stones themselves were holding their breath. Thane had survived the initial wave of creatures and alien competitors, yet he knew this was only the beginning. Kael'thar's challenges were not meant to be simple. They were designed to crush hope, to expose weakness. Every step forward in this arena was a test of mind and body, and every glance from the Warlord's eyes reminded Thane that failure meant more than death, it meant disgrace. Liara followed from the balcony above, leaning carefully on her cane. Her eyes traced his movements as he inspected the next section of the arena. She had watched humans before, in her father's conquests. But Thane was different. He did not flinch at the traps, did not panic at the sudden attacks of alien beasts, and did not falter when facing the grotesque forms of her father's strongest warriors. He adapted, calculated, and turned every obstacle to his advantage. She felt an unfamiliar respect building, a feeling that perhaps this human was more than mere flesh and bone. The next challenge revealed itself in a cloud of green mist, rising from a series of pits that ran across the arena floor. From the mist came creatures unlike any Thane had seen before. Long, serpentine forms with translucent skin, their bodies glowing faintly, revealing the deadly organs inside. Their eyes were many, blinking independently, and they moved with terrifying speed. Even the strongest Zelthar warriors had fallen to them in previous games. Thane crouched low, studying their movement. He noticed their rhythm, the way they coiled before striking. He did not hesitate. Using the arena's pillars and walls, he launched himself into a series of flips and rolls, dodging their snapping jaws. One serpent lunged toward him, but he grabbed a jagged piece of metal from the arena floor and skewered it, impaling the creature on the pillar. Another tried to sneak from behind, but he anticipated the attack, catching it mid-strike and hurling it into a pit. The other humans in the arena had been crushed already, some reduced to nothing more than memories of screams and shadows. But Thane continued, moving with a precision that was almost unnatural. He did not panic. He did not tire, though sweat poured down his face and his muscles burned. Every breath, every movement, every thought was focused on survival and success. The crowd watched in awe. Even the alien nobles, used to dominance and submission, whispered among themselves. "He is only human," one said, incredulous, "and yet he moves as though he is something more." Haelfar remained silent, his multifaceted eyes fixed on Thane, reading every twitch of his muscles, every glance, every decision. Hours passed, though time in the arena had no meaning. The serpents were relentless, but Thane's mind was sharper. He noticed patterns in their attacks and began to exploit them. One would coil, then strike, another would leap from the mist, but they all fell into his carefully laid traps. He pushed one serpent into the arena's swinging pendulum blades, using the momentum to cut it in two. Another he drove into a spiked pit, taking care to avoid the traps himself. Liara's heart raced as she watched. She had feared for him, yes, but also something else. Curiosity. There was a human who faced death with courage, who relied on wit and skill as much as brute strength. In a world where her father valued only power, Thane's approach was revolutionary. She wanted to speak, to reach out, but she could not move. She could only watch. When the last serpent fell, Thane barely paused to catch his breath. He knew the arena's challenges were not only physical, they were designed to test strategy, intelligence, and endurance. He moved on, approaching a narrow canyon filled with jagged stones. The ground shook, and from above, massive rocks began to fall, dropped by mechanisms hidden in the canyon walls. He darted from shadow to shadow, rolling under rocks, pushing himself to the limits of agility. One misstep would crush him instantly. He noticed small gaps in the falling pattern and timed his moves accordingly. A massive boulder crashed down beside him, missing by mere inches. Another followed, and he leaped over a sharp crevice just in time, landing hard, but steady. The arena was alive, every corner a threat, every second a challenge. But Thane adapted. By the time he reached the end of the canyon, his body ached, his face streaked with blood and grime, yet his mind remained clear. He had survived where others had failed. He had turned death itself into a weapon, a teacher, and an opportunity. And in the distance, he saw the final stage, the pit of the Warlord's champions. Here, the strongest alien warriors awaited. Each was larger than any human could hope to be, armored and armed with weapons forged from the rarest metals of the Zelthar Empire. They had been trained to kill for Kael'thar's amusement, and they assumed the human would be no more than a stepping stone. They did not expect intelligence, calculation, or strategy. They did not expect Thane. The fight began with a roar, the ground trembling beneath the combined weight of combatants. One warrior lunged, swinging a massive blade, but Thane dodged, catching the momentum and twisting it against the attacker's arm. Another struck with a spear, aiming for a vital point, but Thane parried, countering with a sweep that knocked the alien off balance. He was smaller, yes, but faster, sharper, and more aware. Every move he made was designed to exploit the weaknesses of the larger, stronger opponent. Hours of combat followed. Thane's muscles screamed. His lungs burned, yet he did not falter. He ducked, rolled, and struck with precision. He used the arena itself, fallen rocks, narrow corridors, uneven ground, to his advantage, turning the environment into a weapon. One by one, the alien champions fell, some to clever traps, others to precise strikes that exploited the gaps in their armor. Liara could hardly breathe as she watched the human conquer challenge after challenge. She had grown up in this court, seeing strength defined by size and brutality, but Thane had rewritten the rules. Intelligence, courage, and adaptability were as powerful as claws, armor, or muscle. At last, only Thane remained standing. Bloodied, battered, but unbroken, he raised his head and looked toward the balcony where Liara stood. There was no boast in his eyes, no arrogance, only quiet determination. He had not come to dominate. He had come to survive and prove that humans were not to be underestimated. Kalthar's voice broke through the tension. "You have passed every test. You have proven your strength, but strength alone is not enough. You must protect my daughter. You must earn her trust, for she is not an object to be won. Her mind, her courage, her judgment, these are equally important." Liara descended from her balcony slowly, her eyes fixed on Thane. She studied him as he stood alone in the arena. Scars and blood marking his journey, yet his posture firm, his gaze unwavering. He did not kneel. He simply acknowledged her presence, a silent promise that he would not see her as a prize, but as a person deserving respect. For a moment, the arena was still, the crowd silent, in awe. A human had survived where alien warriors failed, had conquered trials designed to break body and spirit, and had earned a place of honor, if not yet trust. Whispers spread through the court. The human, he is not what we expected. P is remarkable. Liara felt something shift inside her. She had been told humans were weak, insignificant, and inferior. Yet here was proof that they could rise, adapt, and even surpass those who considered themselves gods among creatures. She could not yet speak, could not yet reach out. But a spark of understanding flickered. Perhaps there was more to this human than anyone, herself included, had believed. Kalthar watched in silence, his expression unreadable. He had made the choice, shocking his court and defying centuries of expectation. Yet he had done so, deliberately. Strength, yes, but also insight. Humans had cunning, resilience, and courage, qualities that could reshape empires if recognized and respected. The Warlord's gamble was not reckless. It was visionary. The sun set over the arena, casting long shadows across the battered stones and fallen bodies. Thane stood in the fading light, ready for the next challenge, not of survival, but of earning the trust and respect of the one he was now charged to protect. Liara's gaze remained on him, cautious but curious, and somewhere deep within the Empire, whispers began to form. Perhaps humans were not to be underestimated after all. The first spark of an unexpected alliance had been lit, and the galaxy would soon feel its fire. The arena was empty now, the echo of battle fading into silence. The other competitors had fallen, the creatures were gone, and only Thane remained. He had survived every test, earned the Warlord's attention, and captured the court's reluctant respect. But survival was only the beginning. The real challenge was just starting. The challenge of trust, understanding, and proving that humanity's strength was more than muscle or reflexes. Liara watched him descend from the arena floor. She moved cautiously, her twisted leg making each step painful. Yet her expression was calm. She was not afraid of the human, though the court had trained her for caution. She wanted to understand him, to see if his strength was matched by wisdom, if his courage could withstand not only the arena, but the intrigues of her father's empire. Thani approached her, not with arrogance, not with aggression, but with respect. He bowed his head slightly, acknowledging her presence without claiming dominance. Liara studied him carefully, noting the subtlety in his posture, the way he did not flex for intimidation, the way his eyes observed her with genuine interest rather than greed. She had expected a human to be brash, violent, or overly confident, but Thane was none of those things. He was calm, intelligent, and aware. "I am Thane," he said finally, his voice low but steady. "I do not seek to command or control you. I am here to protect if you will allow it." Liara's eyes narrowed. She had been given little choice in her life. She had been treated as fragile, as a liability, as someone whose value depended entirely on her father's decisions. Yet here was a human who spoke not of fear or power, but of partnership. She was unsure if she could trust him, but something inside her, a part that had long been silenced, stirred. "You have survived the arena?" she said cautiously. "That proves strength, yes, but it does not prove loyalty or wisdom. How do I know you will not turn against me?" Thane looked her directly in the eyes. "Because I know what it means to be underestimated. I will not treat you as a prize or a tool. You are not weak. You are not a possession. I will protect you because it is the right thing to do, not because it benefits me." The sincerity in his words was unusual in this court, where flattery and deception were common. Liara felt a spark of curiosity. Perhaps this human was different. Perhaps, despite being called inferior, he possessed a strength that went beyond the physical. Their tentative alliance began with small steps. Thane observed the fortress, noting the patrols, the hidden guards, and the weaknesses in the Warlord's defenses. He spoke little but noticed everything. Liara, in turn, began to share what she knew. The corruption among the court, the political rivalries, the secret fears that Kael'tar's advisors hid behind their arrogance. She spoke carefully, choosing her words, but Thane listened with patience and clarity, absorbing every detail without judgment. In the days that followed, their bond grew. Thane did not rush her, nor did he force his presence. He simply remained near, providing protection when needed, showing ingenuity in avoiding patrols, and quietly demonstrating the value of human problem-solving. When a sudden attack came from a rogue faction of alien nobles attempting to capture Liara for their own gain, Thane acted quickly. Using both his strength and his intellect, he anticipated the ambush, setting traps that used the environment to their advantage. The attackers fell into pits, were ensnared by nets, or were driven away by clever distractions. Not a single human ally had survived such a battle without strategy, and Thane had done it alone. Liara began to see what the court had never acknowledged. Humans were not merely physical beings to be controlled. They had ingenuity, courage, and resilience that could outmatch even the most powerful aliens when underestimated. Her respect for Thane grew, and with it, a cautious trust. Yet the court was not idle. Rumors spread of the human who had survived the arena, of his clever strategies, and of his growing influence over the Warlord's daughter. Some nobles saw this as a threat, fearing that a human could upset centuries of hierarchy. They conspired in secret, planning assassinations, traps, and challenges designed to eliminate Thane before he could consolidate any influence. One evening, as Liara and Thane moved through the fortress under the cover of darkness, they encountered one such ambush. Several heavily armed guards lunged at them from the shadows, confident that the human would be overwhelmed. Thane's response was swift and precise. He did not rely on brute force alone. He anticipated each attack, using the momentum of the guards against them. A swing of a blade sent one tumbling into a wall. A punch redirected a spear into a nearby pillar. Within moments, the ambushers lay incapacitated, and Thane emerged unscathed. Though slightly bruised, Liara watched in awe. She had grown up in a court where physical dominance was everything, but Thane's victory had been as much mental as physical. He had calculated every move, anticipated every attack, and turned the enemy's confidence into their downfall. She realized then that strength could take many forms, and humans, long underestimated, had a type of power that even her father had overlooked. The Warlord observed silently from his private chamber. Kael'thar had chosen Thane not for spectacle, but for insight. He saw potential in humans that others ignored. Potential that, if nurtured, had become an unstoppable force. Kael'thar's choice had been deliberate, not a gift to Liara, but a challenge to the galaxy. Humans were resilient, clever, and adaptable, and Thane was the embodiment of those qualities. In the following weeks, Thane and Liara worked together. Not as master and prize, but as allies. Thane trained Liara in movement despite her disability, teaching her to compensate for her leg, to use her intelligence and strategy to overcome obstacles, and to recognize threats before they became dangers. Liara taught Thane about alien culture, politics, and the hidden hierarchies that dictated the court's every decision. They became a team, each complementing the other's strengths, each respecting the other's limits. When another challenge came, a diplomatic mission requiring delicate negotiation with a neighboring alien faction, Thane's human perspective proved invaluable. While the aliens relied on intimidation, posturing, and tradition, Thane employed logic, observation, and empathy. He noticed the subtle cues of fear and deceit, the inconsistencies in speech, and the hidden motivations behind every action. By combining his insight with Lyra's knowledge, they diffused a potential conflict before it could erupt into violence. The court was stunned. Not only had a human survived the arena and bested the Warlord's elite, but now he was shaping diplomacy, guiding strategy, and proving that humans were not merely tools for labor or combat. Liara began to see her father's empire differently. Power was not only in brute force or tradition, it was in adaptability, in intelligence, and in courage under pressure. Humans, so long dismissed, embodied these qualities in ways the aliens could not anticipate. Even Kael'thar could not hide his approval. He watched quietly as Thane and Lyra navigated the complexities of court intrigue, surviving ambushes, uncovering conspiracies, and turning potential disasters into opportunities. The Warlord had seen many warriors rise and fall, but few had the combination of strength, intellect, and heart that Thane displayed. He realized that this human, underestimated by all, had the potential to change the very structure of the Empire. One night, as the stars shone over the fortress, Thane and Lyra sat in a secluded chamber, reviewing the events of the past weeks. Lyra spoke quietly, her voice reflective. "I did not trust you at first. I thought you were like the others, brash, violent, limited by your kind. But you are different. You think, you plan, you protect, not because you must, but because it is right. That is a type of strength I have never seen before." Thane nodded, his gaze steady. Strength is not just muscle or weapons. Strength is knowing what is right, even when it is dangerous. It is using your mind, your heart, and your body in harmony. You have it too, Liara, even if you have been told otherwise. You are not weak. You never were. For the first time, Lyra smiled without hesitation. She felt the weight of expectation, fear, and isolation begin to lift. She realized that together they were stronger than the court, stronger than the Warlord's enemies, and perhaps even stronger than the Empire itself. And somewhere deep within the fortress, Kael'thar's eyes gleamed with a quiet satisfaction. The choice he had made, giving his daughter to a human, was not foolish. It was the spark of a revolution, a test of humanity, and a lesson to the galaxy. Underestimating humans could be the greatest mistake any civilization could make. The first stage of their partnership was complete. Trust was budding, alliances were forming, and the galaxy had yet to see the full power of the human spirit. Thani and Lyra had survived the arena, navigated the dangers of court intrigue, and discovered the potential in each other. The challenges ahead would be greater, but for the first time the human and the alien princess were ready to face them together. The Empire had underestimated humanity for centuries, but now the tides were turning. And when the next challenge arrived, the galaxy would remember that humans were not to be dismissed, not to be ignored, and certainly not to be underestimated. The Warlord's fortress was quiet that morning, though the calm was only a thin veil over the storm that had been building for weeks. Rumors of a human who had survived the arena and earned the Warlord's daughter's respect had reached every corner of the Empire. Whispers of rebellion, of weakness in the court, of human cunning that could turn tides, spread like wildfire. Kael'thar observed silently from his chamber, his multifaceted eyes scanning every report, every movement, and every face. He had chosen Thane deliberately, but even he could not predict how quickly humanity's strength would ripple through his empire. Lyra moved beside Tani in the corridors of the fortress, her cane steady in her hand, her eyes alert. The lessons of the past weeks had taught her to rely not only on her physical abilities but on her intelligence and observation. She had learned from Thane how to anticipate danger, how to think several steps ahead, and how to turn weakness into advantage. Together, they had already avoided traps, foiled conspiracies, and survived assassination attempts. Yet this day promised the greatest challenge yet. A messenger arrived in a hurry, a young Zelthar noble, whose usual arrogance was replaced with evident fear. "Warlord Kael'thar," he stammered. "The southern governors are mobilizing. They will not accept your decision to place a human at the center of power. They demand action. They say your daughter and the human are a threat to the Empire." Kael'thar's expression remained unreadable. "Then let them come," he said simply. "Let them witness what humans can do when underestimated." Thane's eyes narrowed. "This is no longer a test," he said. "It's war." The fortress gates opened, revealing a host of alien forces, more massive and organized than any Thane had yet faced. Thousands of soldiers marched in perfect formation, their weapons gleaming under the light of Zelthar's twin suns. But Thane did not panic. He scanned the terrain, noting choke points, weaknesses in formations, and natural hazards he could exploit. Humanity had survived impossible odds before, and now those skills would be tested on a scale far greater than the arena. Liara studied Thane as he issued quiet commands to the humans and loyal Zelthar guards. "We cannot win with brute force alone," he said. "We will use strategy, deception, and the environment to our advantage. Every move will matter. Every decision will count. Trust me." The first wave of attackers approached the fortress walls. Towering war machines rumbled forward, bristling with weapons designed to crush anything in their path. Yet Thani had anticipated their arrival. Hidden trenches, camouflaged pits, and collapsing barricades awaited. As the first machines advanced, they were funneled into narrow pathways where the terrain itself became a weapon. One by one, the war machines faltered, tipping into pits or becoming trapped in collapsing corridors. The alien soldiers, confident in their numbers, charged next. Thane led a small unit of humans, moving with speed and precision. Unlike the aliens, humans were flexible and unpredictable. They used guerrilla tactics, attacking from unexpected angles using distractions, traps, and terrain to even the odds. Liara watched as her father's elite soldiers struggled to keep up, their rigid training no match for human ingenuity. Hours passed in a blur of calculated chaos. Thane's strategies turned the tide of battle repeatedly. He used mirrors and reflective surfaces to blind attackers, flammable liquids to create walls of fire, and precise timing to collapse portions of the fortress against enemy formations. Each victory was small, but cumulative, wearing down the alien forces and turning their confidence into confusion and fear. From the palace balcony, Ceolfar observed quietly. He had faced rebellion, assassination, and civil war. Yet even he had to admit that the humans' combination of courage, intelligence, and adaptability was extraordinary. No alien in his empire had ever demonstrated such control over chaos, such foresight, and such leadership. Thane was not just a fighter. He was a strategist, a commander, and a symbol of human potential. Liara moved among the defenders, guiding troops, relaying information, and using her knowledge of court politics to outmaneuver traitors who sought to exploit the chaos. She had grown in confidence, her once fragile form now commanding respect. Humans had taught her to trust her mind as much as her body, and under Thane's guidance, she became a force the attackers could not predict. As the battle reached its peak, the southern governors unleashed their final weapon, a massive siege construct, a towering machine bristling with cannons and cutting lasers. Its advance threatened to crush the fortress completely. Thane studied it carefully, calculating every angle and vulnerability. He directed the defenders to focus on weak points in its joints while preparing a trap that would exploit its immense size. The humans moved with precision, coordinating attacks to guide the machine into a narrow ravine. Once in position, Thane triggered a series of collapses in the canyon walls. The construct toppled, caught in the earth it could not control, and shattered under its own weight. The alien soldiers, seeing their ultimate weapon destroyed, faltered in morale. Chaos swept through their ranks. Thane seized the moment. Leading a small strike team, he pushed forward into the heart of the enemy formation, cutting through leaders and disrupting communication. The remaining forces, leaderless and disoriented, retreated. The fortress stood, battered but victorious, its walls scarred but unbroken. Humanity had proven its worth on a scale the Empire had never imagined. Liara approached Thane, her face lit with admiration and gratitude. "You did what no one thought possible," she said. "You protected me, the fortress, and even the Empire."
"You humans are not what anyone believed."
Thane shook his head. "I did what I had to do. You and I, together, made it happen. Humans are not weak, Liara, but neither are we invincible. We survive because we think, adapt, and never underestimate our opponents. That is what makes us strong." Ceolfar emerged from his chamber, his towering form casting a shadow across the battlefield. He approached Thane, his voice carrying the weight of authority and approval. "You have done more than survive. You have changed the course of this empire. Humans are no longer to be dismissed. You have proven that strength is not just size or weapons, but mind, courage, and heart combined." The court watched in silence, stunned by the events. For centuries, humans had been slaves, tools, or curiosities in the Empire. Now they had demonstrated that they could challenge, adapt, and even outthink the most powerful aliens in the galaxy. The message was clear. Humanity could not be ignored. Thane turned to Liara, who stood beside him, her once fragile form now exuding quiet confidence.
"This is only the beginning," he said. "We have won today, but there will be more challenges."
The galaxy underestimates humans, and we must continue to prove ourselves not just through strength, but through intelligence, courage, and unity.
Lara nodded, a smile forming on her lips.
"I trust you," she said simply, "not because of power, but because of your heart and mind. That is something the Empire has never seen before." Together they walked through the fortress, acknowledging the loyal humans who had fought, and even the aliens who had survived and learned to respect human ingenuity. The battle had ended, but a new era had begun, one where humans were no longer slaves, no longer underestimated, and no longer invisible in the eyes of the galaxy. The warlord Ceolfar looked on, his expression unreadable. yet a subtle sense of pride gleamed in his eyes. He had made a choice that shocked his empire, challenged centuries of tradition, and revealed the potential of a species he had once dismissed. The human who had been given his daughter's protection had proven that intelligence, courage, and resilience could surpass brute strength and tradition. News of the victory spread quickly across the empire. Humans were now respected, not feared for weakness, but admired for ingenuity. Across countless worlds, the story of Thane, the human who had survived the arena, earned the Warlord's trust, and defended the fortress, became a symbol of hope and potential. Civilizations began to reconsider the role of humans, realizing that underestimating them could be catastrophic. In the quiet of the evening, Thon and Lyra stood atop the fortress walls, looking out at the horizon where the twin suns of Zelfar sank low. The battle was over, but the galaxy was changing. Together, they had demonstrated the value of trust, intelligence, and courage. Together, they had shown that humans were more than their captors had believed. Liara leaned on her cane, but she stood taller than ever in spirit. "We did it," she said softly. "We changed things today." Thane placed a hand gently on her shoulder.
"This is just the start. Humans have the strength to survive, the mind to plan, and the courage to lead. The galaxy is going to remember that.
And we will make sure it never forgets." As night fell, the stars above the Zelfar fortress twinkled with silent approval. A human and an alien princess had reshaped destiny. An empire had learned a lesson it would never forget, and humanity, long underestimated, had claimed its place in the galaxy, not through fear, but through heart, mind, and unyielding spirit. The age of underestimation was over. The age of human triumph had begun.